such a good way to start the morning. So good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Idaho Falls. I am Annette Lovell and I am your worship associate this morning, bringing you the service with a special guest, Miranda Marquit, and our media support, Vic Allen. What's that? Is it too low? Is that better? Thank you. So first of all, to welcome, I'd like everyone to notice the words on the back of your order of service. It's our UUCIF mission statement, and it's the best welcome I could share today. So I want to read it out loud to remind us why we choose to be here on Sunday mornings, even bitter cold Sunday mornings, and why we support this church. So what do we stand for? We want to honor the individual's right to religious and spiritual freedom, minister to each other and the community at large, nurture the search for truth and meaning. And you notice that's a little t, not a big T. Truth is a hard word. Be a loving and intergenerational community, welcoming to all beliefs, races, sexual orientations, ethnicities, and gender identities. And improve the quality of life by living our values and working for local and universal justice. This is our mission statement. This is why we're here. These are the important tenets that we need to remember as we live our life day to day. So we like to start our time together with announcements, and there are very, very few this morning. So first of all, I always like to say, if you're joining us online live today, please sign into the chat box. We'd love to see who's out there. And if you have a joy or concern to share, please type it in your chat box. For those in the sanctuary, we will be sharing joys and concerns later in the service. There are papers back on the greeter table for you to fill out, and they'll be brought up a little bit later. Today is our second Sunday shared meal. I don't know how much of a meal we have, but I know we've got goodies. I've seen quite a few things have gone downstairs. We have a real meal? So please, yes. So please plan on staying after the service and join us downstairs in our fellowship hall. Are there any other announcements? Yeah, that was about it.
Are we starting our second Sunday Change for Change this week?
I have not heard.
Because we had chosen one, I thought Reverend Kevin passed it on. This month is our Change for Change is for the Women's Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence Center over here by the old hospital area. And they, receive a lot of money through grants, and they lost 93% of their funding this past year because a lot of their grants were tied to the COVID thing, and they've dried up. So please help keep the phone bill paid for them. And that would be going into our offering basket.
Today?
Today.
Today.
So if you have some spare change, drop it in. Or if you have a check you want to write, if you're putting your pledge in, just say pledge or whatever, okay?
And for anything else, we'll give it to the women's domestic violence. Okay.
So yeah, we're starting again with Change for Change, and once again, the chain of communication did not work.
We'll work on that.
Okay. Well, I'll be retiring after this.
Okay. So that is for during our offering. Okay. So now let us prepare for worship. A few moments to settle in, calm our minds and our breathing. Let us breathe deeply together, listen to one another, and I will ring the peace bowl 3 times.
1922, you let other women make a fool out of you. Why don't you do right like some other men do? Get out of here and get me some money too. You're sitting round wondering what it's all about. If you ain't got no money, they will put you out. Why don't you do right like some other men do? Get out of here and get me some money too. I fell for your driving and I took you in. Now all you've got to offer me is a drink of gin. Why don't you do right like some other men do? Get out of here and get me some money too, like some other men do. Get me some money too.
So, like our mission statement, our covenant helps put into words the feel and ideas of how we want to live our daily lives. It is a reminder of our agreement of how we are to treat each other and ourselves. So please recite with me as we read this congregation's covenant. It is written in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And our chalice lighting this morning comes from Cindy Terlazzo. She says, amidst the swirl of life's challenges, fears, and even moments of crisis, I make time to gaze at the night sky to see the vastness there, and to remember that this moment in time is but a flicker, not an inconsequential flicker, for what I do and think now does matter. My work, though, is to let the debris of this world pass by while I anchor myself to what I know is true. Love, kindness, compassion, and caring for this precious life, this precious planet, and all that call this place home. This is my North Star. With love as my guide, how can I possibly go wrong? It works. Our opening hymn is page 126, Come Thou Font of Every Blessing. Please rise as you are willing and able.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hope of life's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful. May we still thy goodness prove. Come thou fount of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of war fall silent, feel our love glow like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come thou fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us bind ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
That work that we do. However, our work should help the community in some way. Buddha also states that in order for us to be truly happy, we should avoid debt and try to pay off our debts. Debts bring anxiety and suffering, and thus living without debt is a form of bliss. But one of the most important tenets that Buddha has mentioned is that we should learn happiness comes from being able to help others. We should help those who are poor and do not have the ability to eat. We should help those who are in lower statures than us. We should help hungry animals. Helping others bring us joy. And thus this teaches us that wealth can be a vehicle for goodness. And in that same idea, we're going to go into our time of all ages. The book I have picked today is by Dave Ramsey. If you're not familiar with him, he has a whole series of books teaching children about money and values and how to work with money. He's a great author on those things. So our book this morning is called The Big Birthday Surprise. Junior ran into the kitchen and did a slop slide past the fridge. Looking at the calendar, he announced, "Only 5 more days to my birthday." As Junior bounced on the bus, he thought of all the gifts that he would get for his birthday. He had asked for a scooter and an army man, a video game, and a real guitar, and a drum set. But that was all. He could hardly wait. "Okay, class," Mrs. Harper began. "This week is our food drive for the children's home. We're asking each student to bring in 3 food items. Then, at the end of the week, I'll choose 2 of you to come help me deliver it." Well, Emma raised her hand. She says, "Why don't the kids have food?" "Well, they do right now, but these children don't have moms and dads to take care of them. So every year we try to help by giving the home something that the children can use." As Junior ate lunch that day, he thought about those children without moms and dads. He thought about them on the bus ride home, and he especially thought about them at dinner that evening. "Mom," he said before taking his first bite, "may I have a can of corn and a can of peas and a couple of boxes of mac and cheese?" Well, Mom looked at Junior's full plate and scrunched her brow. "It's for the kids at the children's home," he explained. "We're collecting food at school." "Oh, Junior," Mom said, and wrapped him in a hug. "Well, of course. Take as much as you want." As the days went by, Junior watched the pile of cans and boxes grow bigger and bigger. And then on Friday, Mrs. Harper made an announcement. "After school today, I'll be delivering all the food to the children's home. Emma, Junior, would you like to go with me?" Junior gulped. He wasn't so sure that he wanted to go meet those kids without moms and dads. What would they look like? What would they talk about? What would they do? But Junior carried a box of food and slowly followed Mrs. Harper and Emma up the steps to the big house. Before Mrs. Harper could even knock, a smiling woman opened the door, and a dozen laughing kids quickly surrounded them. "Mac and cheese, my favorite!" A boy about Junior's age reached for the box. "Here, I'll take that to the kitchen. I'm Chris. What's your name?" "Well, I'm Junior," Junior answered, following Chris to the kitchen. After putting the food away, the boys headed outside. "Want to play catch?" Junior asked. "Well, I don't have a baseball glove," Chris answered. "But do you like to climb trees?" He bounded up a tree and was swinging from a limb. "Cool." Junior was right behind him. They played and played until Mrs. Harper told Junior it was time to go. That night, as Junior was settling into bed, his mom stepped by his room. "Good night, sweetheart. Big day tomorrow." Junior had almost forgotten. The party! Junior grinned back at her. He knew how hard she had worked on his birthday party, and she had invited just about every kid he knew. And as Junior tried to fall asleep, he kept thinking about one kid, Chris. He was the only boy Junior knew who didn't have a baseball glove. The next day was a blur of streamers and balloons and presents, and in no time, Junior was holding the last gift in his hand. It was a plain white envelope, but from the look on Grandma's face, Junior knew it had to be good. He carefully pulled the flap open and looked inside. "Whoa," Junior ran to his grandma, clutching a crisp $100 bill. "Thanks, Grandma. Thanks 100. Wow. Spend it wisely," she said, answering with a wink. Gotta love grandmas. When the last guest left, before the door had even closed, Junior turned to his dad. "Hey, Dad, will you drive me to the store?" "Is that $100 bill already burning a hole in your pocket?" Dad laughed. "Let me help get everything cleaned up. Then we can go." "Thanks, Dad," Junior yelled halfway up the stairs. A little later, Junior met his dad at the bottom of the stairs. "What's all this?" Dad asked, noting the big box of toys in Junior's hands. "Well, after we go to the store, could we take these toys to the children's home? I think they could use them." "Well, of course," Dad answered. Mom's face wrinkled into a weird smile, and her eyes kind of welled up with tears, but Dad spoke for both of them. "That is such a thoughtful thing to do, Junior. We're so proud of you." And at the children's home that afternoon, the kids were so excited about all the toys. Junior looked around at his new friend. He finally spotted Chris walking toward him. "Hey, Junior, thanks for all the toys. You want to play a game of checkers?" Well, Junior said, pulling a gift from out of his backpack, I thought you might like to play with this instead. Chris's eyes grew wide as he unwrapped a brand new baseball and glove. Junior grinned. "Want to play catch?" "Are you kidding me?" Chris answered. He ran for the door with Junior right behind him. "Thanks, Dad," Junior said as they rode home that night. That was the best birthday ever. And they both knew that the best birthday present was the one that Junior gave away. Well, we only have one child today, but we'll sing her out, and she can go with Cindy.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
So it's time to share our joys and concerns. This lets us help connect together as we share those parts of our lives. It's very important. Cindy has a joy. She's grateful for the pause in the snow. Quite a few that are all dealing with the exact same thing. Victoria, Bill, and Rosie. And it all deals with another lovely person in our community named Arthur Cool. Arthur was awarded a Community Citizens Award by our mayor. Arthur and Annalise, you are an incredible asset to Idaho Falls. Nicely done.
Saw you on TV. You're a personality.
Yeah, lots of joys are doing that very thing. We have a joy from Emma. She says, my brother's surgery went well. He's just worrying about getting better now. So you were concerned about that last week. I'm glad it went well. And another joy from Emma, my friend Sean Jensen asked me to sing for his son's celebration of life. The event was yesterday, and it was a beautiful service. It was an honor to sing for his son, Jaden. Vic, do we have any in the chat box?
We do. We have a joy from Molly Brinkerhoff this morning. And she says she went and visited with Alan McCready and Allison. He's 96, and she says he's doing as well as could be expected.
We can hear Alan say those very things.
Is he at home?
Yes.
And we will light one more candle for the joys and the concerns that we choose not to share today. So we have a guest with us today that I'm sure many of you recognize and know from local community activities, especially social justice fundraisers and activities. Miranda is a nationally recognized financial wellness expert, a writer, a podcaster, and a speaker. She works with the Plutus Foundation, a national financial literacy nonprofit. Locally, Miranda serves on the board of Habitat for Humanity, the Soup Kitchen, and the YMCA, as well as being involved in local politics. She holds an MBA and a master's degree in journalism. And Miranda, when she is not working, podcasting, or volunteering, she enjoys hiking, reading, board games, and lots of traveling. I love following all the places that Miranda travels to throughout the year. It's one of my secret pleasures on Facebook. So, welcome, Miranda.
Okay. Oh, yay. Okay, that does work. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to address you. It's been several years since I've been here to the UU, and so I'm excited to be back. As many of you know, it's very difficult for me to be dressed before noon. So I'm glad to be here today with you. I've got to find a place to put my water. Okay. So first of all, Happy New Year. So glad to be here in this new year. How many of you have made New Year's resolutions? Yeah. It's okay. Congratulations to those of you who have made those New Year resolutions. We are at the halfway point where most of you will just abandon them anyway. That's right. According to various studies and estimates, the claim is that most people abandon their New Year's resolutions by the beginning of February. It's also bad news for what might be close to 40% of you who made financial resolutions. According to a recent Forbes annual resolution survey, 38% of Americans make financial resolutions. It's only second to fitness resolutions. So if you were ready to get your money right this year, it's all over for you. Go home. You're done. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. When we talk about financial resolutions, much of it comes from the fact that we don't think about our values when setting these money goals. And that's part of the reason they fail. We don't think about how resolutions like pay off debt, start investing, build an emergency fund actually connect to our values and what matters to us. None of these things are bad ideas, but they also lack context and they lack a compelling reason to move forward with them. Sure, you may want to save more money this year, but what are you saving it for? What will you do with it? Is it just a number in a bank account that makes you feel warm and fuzzy? Or does that money have a purpose? And where will you direct that money to fulfill its purpose? So 15 years ago, I started thinking about what I wanted my life to look like. How would I start designing a life that reflected my values? And of course, in our current system, you also have to have the money to make that happen. So I had to think about how would I get the money to live a life that reflected my values. But I needed to start with those values. At the time, my top 4 values that I said were my top 4 values were time with family, making sure my son had support in activities that would set him up for a good future, charitable contributions, and travel. None of these values can be classified as paying down debt, even though I had a lot of credit card debt at the time. And they didn't fall under the category of start investing or save money. But once I dug in, I started realizing a couple of things. If I could put together a debt paydown plan and work toward that goal, I would eventually be able to cut back on how much work I was doing. Once that was done, I could free up time to spend with my family, which I said was one of my values. Plus, I'd have more money available to donate to charity. With an investing plan, I could put money into a taxable account that I could then use for travel or to pay activities for my son. And deciding for a rainy day meant less stress in my life if an emergency came up, similar to what Annette brought up with our reading today and some of the Buddha's teachings. We have less stress when we have this money saved up. I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew I was supposed to have an emergency fund, get rid of my debt, and start investing for that far-off mountain of retirement, that far-off candy mountain that would be retirement someday. I knew those were the things I was supposed to do, but it was really hard. It keeps falling. It was really hard to get fired up about that because I couldn't see how it directly affected my values and what mattered to me. So nearly everything on my list required money to accomplish, but almost nothing on the list was overtly related to a typical financial resolution at the beginning of the year. So I needed to figure out how to connect those things. And one of the first things I did was take a look at my spending. We might not be aware of it, but how we use our money reflects our priorities. So let's talk about what I was doing at this time in my life when I said that my top goals were time with family and travel and charitable contributions and helping my son. If you looked around my house, you would see shelves full of knickknacks and kitchen cabinets stuffed full of trendy small appliances. So you would be forgiven if you came to my house to think that my main priorities in life were porcelain chickens and smoothies, because I had all sorts of blenders, special food processors. You would think all I did was drink smoothies and buy porcelain chickens. And that was, I wasn't drinking smoothies. I just had blenders that weren't being used. But I did have a lot of porcelain chickens. And they weren't even that cute, you guys. I didn't even like looking at them. But I had them, and I don't know why. And there's nothing wrong with having these things. They're morally neutral. How you use your money is morally neutral. But I added it up and I realized I had spent thousands of dollars on porcelain chickens and blenders that I didn't use. I had a huge TV that I almost never watched. And when I added it up, I realized that the money that I had spent in the previous few years, I could have gone to Europe 3 times. 3 times. So basically, I said one of my main values was travel. But when you looked at my spending priorities, you would think that my main values were porcelain chickens. And so I started saying, wait a minute, how is all of this reflecting my values? How am I able to start living a life that's reflective of my values if my spending priorities are not aligning with what is going on in my bank account? So in order to start directing my financial resources in ways that reflected these values, I had to start with them. So you can do that too. I encourage you, if you've already set resolutions about your money, rethink those and instead go home and start with your values. Go home and figure out what are the top 4 to 6 things that matter most to me or that I want to most reflect on and most accomplish this year. And I guarantee you, your top value isn't save more money. Your top value is probably spend time with family. Okay, so then how does saving more money help you do that? How will that help move you forward? So once you've narrowed down your values to your top few, and this is where it gets hard, guys, pull out your bank statements or fire up that app you use to track your finances and look at everything you've spent in the last 3 months. And this is a brutal exercise because you have to be very honest about how you're spending your money. And you have to be honest about, are there discrepancies in the way I spend my money versus the way I say I wish I could spend my money? I used to say, I want to spend more money on charitable contributions and travel. Okay, so then why do I have all these blenders when I don't drink smoothies? Really looking at those discrepancies, in my case, was I just wasn't thinking about what I was spending my money on. I was spending my money on something shiny rather than thinking about, is this enriching my life? But there might be other reasons that are less easy to tackle. At one point in my life, one of the biggest reasons I wasn't spending according to my personal values was because my son needed braces. So I had to draw down, hey, what am I spending? Can I still put some money toward my values? But I need to pay for braces. At another point in my life, one of the reasons I wasn't engaged in values-based spending was because I was going through a divorce. And I had to take care of my finances in a slightly different way. So there's going to be times in your life where it's a little bit tougher to tackle the discrepancies. But acknowledging them and figuring out a plan on how to address them can help you move forward. In my case, barring all those other things, I did start to decide, how can I make better choices about my spending and where I'm putting my financial resources? So I put together 4 questions to help me decide, am I going to spend this money? So before I make an expenditure, I ask these questions. The first question is, do I need this? Is this something I need to survive? The second question I ask is, does this help me reach one of my values-based objectives? So will using this money, will putting this money someplace help me travel somewhere? Or will it help me, prepare for retirement? Or will it provide me with a cushion that lets me work less? My third question is, does this support others? So when I was asking about whether I should put money in my son's 529, that question came into play. Should I put the money there? Will it help my son? When I donate to a charity, is this helping my community? Is this helping others support the mission of the charity? So that's a question I ask myself. And finally, I ask myself, will it enrich my life? I don't need season tickets to the symphony, but it sure makes my life better, and it sure helps me enjoy the arts that we have in this community. So those are the 4 questions I ask myself. I must answer yes to at least one question in order to spend the money. If the answer to all 4 questions is no, I take a pass, and I think about where those financial resources could be better directed. You might come up with your own questions based on your values. You don't have to use my questions. But the idea is to start thinking about what matters to you and how your money is a tool to achieve that. It's not the end itself. You can have a huge bank account, but what are you doing with that bank account? And where is that money going? And how is that money helping you, your community, or helping you and have a further enriched life? So I share my past values. Today, my values are a little bit different. I have a couple different values. So my main values right now are time with family and friends, availability to volunteer and participate in my community, travel, it's always going to be travel, flexibility to balance self-care and social interaction with work and volunteer obligations. So as you can see, some of my values have remained the same, but today, the way I spend my money, the way I invest my money, and the way I live my life is a better reflection of the values that I have than the way I used my money before. And my priorities have also shifted. Back when I made my initial values list, my financial priorities focused on taking care of my needs, paying down my debt, setting aside a little money in a retirement account, building an emergency fund, and donating to my church. Once I had a better handle on my debt, I began putting money into a 529 for my son's education, and then I began building a travel fund. So as I've moved through and my finances have changed, I have been able to adjust my priorities. Today, my financial priorities include making sure my needs and basic obligations like insurance are covered, continuing contributions to a tax-advantaged account for whatever I feel like my retirement's going to look like, and contributions to a taxable investment account I use for things like travel, emergencies, and experiences. I also set up recurring contributions to charities and causes that I believe in. That way, my money is automatically going toward things in the community that I want to support. And finally, I make sure that I have financial resources set aside to enjoy our arts scene. I have arty tickets, and I try to attend various events. Your list of priorities might look different based on your values and how you interact with your community. But the idea is to sit down and think about that and reflect on that. So my life today looks different than it did 15 years ago, and it's not just because I'm mostly single and my son is in college. And sometimes I feel frustrated and I get discouraged, just as we all do. And sometimes I make a financial choice that doesn't match my values, and it is frustrating to feel that way. But overall, because I've taken the time to think about what matters most to me and how to prioritize that in my budget, my life today is more fulfilling and a better reflection of my values. So how do you begin bringing your finances in line with your values? And how do you move forward with this? Everybody's path is going to look different, but here are a few things that I think might help you as you move forward. First of all, remember that it doesn't happen overnight. I keep talking about what my life looked like 15 years ago and what it looks like now. Those are two very different things, and it didn't happen overnight. It was an incremental work in progress, and today I am still a work in progress. I am still constantly adjusting and readjusting and figuring out how to move forward. Once I decided to pay down that debt, it took me years to get rid of all of it. It took me years to build my travel fund. And it took me years to get in a place where I can donate enough money to causes in my community to help make a difference. Next, start small. This is everybody's favorite piece of advice when we talk about doing big things. You hear it all the time. But there's a reason for that. Too often, when we bite off more than we can chew, we become discouraged and we quit. One of my favorite things that they've said about debt is it doesn't help you if you try and get rid of all joy in your life to try and pay down all of your debt by the end of the year, because eventually you're going to get disappointed, you're not going to be able to keep doing it, and then you'll give up, say it'll never happen, and then just go on a binge. And that's one of the things that happens when we look at money and psychology. Constantly depriving yourself while you're trying to work toward these goals actually is counterproductive in many cases. So by starting small and making it manageable and then stepping up your efforts over time, you're more likely to succeed over time. My first foray into investing was putting $50 a month into a Roth IRA. I know jargon. If you want definitions later, ask me. But that's not enough to retire on. $50 a month is not enough to retire on. But it was a step forward, and it was a conscious decision to prioritize where my financial resources went. And then, as I saw results, I could start stepping that up. My son actually opened his first Roth IRA 6 months ago, and he started with $5 a week because that's what he felt he could do. And that's not going to be enough for him to retire on. But after a few months, this month, in fact, he decided he makes enough money and he has redone his budget enough that now he can afford $10 a week. So he is putting more in there as he's moved forward, and he's stepping it up. Eventually, when he gets done with school and has what we like to call a real job, he'll be able to put more toward retirement. But for now, what he is building is a habit of prioritizing what matters to him and using his money in ways that matter to him. Next, I suggest embracing mediocrity. One of the things that is really hard to deal with for me is you see these stories and they make a big deal of them in the media about how you paid off hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1 year or tens of thousands of dollars in 6 months. And for some people, that is possible. If you have 2 incomes and no kids and you never have a health problem, then sure, easy money. But most of us have a life and real issues. And trying to say, I have to do this amazing superhuman feat is only likely to defeat us. So I went ahead and embraced my mediocrity. I chipped away at my debt slowly over time. A lot of financial gurus would probably have told me that I should have done it faster or I should have done it differently. But I made solid, regular progress. And solid, regular progress is what helps you feel better and helps you keep going. So I also don't have a big fun story about how I beat the market every year and pick all the right investments and made $10,000 here. I don't have that story because I'm mediocre. I invest in index funds. And so it's boring. I am boring when it comes to my investments. I've embraced the mediocrity, but embracing that mediocrity and moving forward with that has helped me build up my travel fund and my retirement account and move forward. You are not a failure if you don't beat market returns or pay off all of your debt this year. Embrace that and start making small changes to put more of your money toward the things that matter. And while you're at it, remember to give yourself grace. We're not going to be moving in a straight line. Progress is not linear. Progress is, I don't even know what it is, but it's backward and it's forward and it's up and it's down. But it's not always linear, and sometimes you have your back tracks. And one of the reasons why I stopped setting New Year's resolutions was because you feel like, well, I made this mistake this month, it's all over, I'll never be able to accomplish it, so the resolution is done, I'll try again next year. One example that I like to use is we're always told in personal finance to set SMART goals. And there's nothing wrong with SMART goals. They can be very helpful. But they're always telling us to set SMART goals. So a good example they use is if you want a $6,000 emergency fund, then you have to put $500 a month in it by the end of this year. And you may be thinking here in January, that's achievable. That's the A in SMART goals, by the way, achievable. You may say, it's measurable, because I'm going to have $6,000 at the end of the year. It's achievable. I can afford $500 a month for this emergency fund. And all of the things are going to fall into place. And then March comes and your car breaks down and you need $500 for a repair. So now you put $500 into a repair and not your emergency fund. Your resolution's over. What are we going to do now? The only way to be on track with this resolution is to put $1,000 in April, or $750 in April and May. And it just starts to feel overwhelming, and then you're done. So one of the things that I have stopped doing is making those kinds of resolutions with my money, and instead saying, all right, how much do I have available in my discretionary spending to put toward the things that I value and the things that I want to make happen? So if this month I can only put $5 into my travel fund, that's how much I'm putting in my travel fund, because I'm putting something toward that value I have. If this month I can only put $10 toward the UU, that's what I'm putting toward the UU, because the UU is a force for good in our community, and I want to support that. And in 3 or 4 months, when the car has been repaired and I have a little more money available, I can increase what I'm putting toward those values. So think of it as an ongoing process and give yourself grace when it doesn't quite work out the way you want it to. And don't forget to adjust as needed. We're always making adjustments. We're always changing things out. And things are always going wrong. This year, I traveled more than I ever have before and got really out of my schedule. And by the end of this year, I had a spending hangover. It was horrible. I had a spending hangover, and things were really out of whack. And I had to make adjustments and say, okay, I can't keep doing things the way I did the last 6 months. We're gonna have to change things up. And it's not always fun, but things were falling by the wayside. And we're all gonna be there, and we're all gonna have those times. And that's okay. Just remember to adjust and set those regular times for reflection. Because that's the next thing to think about. As you move through this life, you will grow and change. And your values will evolve. And your priorities will update. So take some time for reflection. I try at least once a month to have a date with my money. We sit down. We talk about what went wrong. We talk about what went right. I look at my bank accounts. I look at what's being automated. I look at the fact that that client didn't pay on time, so now my electric bill is going to be shut off if I don't do something about it. No. But no, I sit down and I say, okay, what's going on with our money? How do we make adjustments? How do we reflect on that? The other things I do is I set up times twice a year in June and usually December to once again reflect. Is the way I'm using my money still in line with my values? Have my values changed? Have my priorities changed? What small adjustments do I need to make to bring myself back on track? And at the end of the year, I may not set resolutions, but I think the end of the year and the beginning of a year is a great time for reflection. To think about, overall, how did I do this year? What could I have done different? And what are my priorities and my values in this coming year? And how will I use my money to support those values and priorities? One of the things that I have always been very grateful for is that my weird little career is flexible and it gives me time to be involved in the community. And it gives me the flexibility to be involved in the community. And I like that. And I like that because it allows me to live my values with the job that I have. That's not always the case for everybody, so you have to think about, how do I adjust my money? How do I save for the future in a way that will allow me to begin living the life that I desire? And this life can be, whatever gives you fulfillment. For me, it is time with friends and family, it is engagement with my community, and it's travel experiences. Those are the things that I like best. And being able to sit down and say, I don't need this porcelain chicken. This porcelain chicken does not help the soup kitchen. This porcelain chicken does not get me to China. And this porcelain chicken is certainly not going to help me retire later. So why do I want to spend money on this? Now, if I really liked porcelain chickens and enjoyed looking at them and was like, I need a porcelain chicken today, I just would like to wake up and see one porcelain chicken, then I would buy that porcelain chicken. I would buy one porcelain chicken. But it doesn't, and so I sold my porcelain chickens and then put that money to pay down debt that I acquired by buying porcelain chickens. But the idea is to think about it and reflect on it and think about, how is this going to help me in the coming year? How is this going to help me in 5 years? And how is this going to help me down the road? And at the risk of using the overused cliche, we're going to do it again. All right, everybody, put on your airline mask. But as they say, you can't help others if you are struggling. And it's the same with your money. If you want to do good in your community, you need to make sure that you have enough in your own cup. Oh my gosh, all the cliches are coming out. You need to make sure you have enough in your own cup. And one of the things that they use is a great visual that I didn't bring today. But imagine this was empty. And imagine I had some rocks. And I wanted to pour water in there and make sure I could fill it up. If you put a whole bunch of little rocks in the bottom, you're not going to have room for big rocks at the top. But if you put all the big rocks in first, all the things that matter to you most, the things that you value the most, and you put those in first, and then pour the little rocks, some of those little rocks will fit in around it, and some of the little rocks won't fit in. But if the little rocks didn't matter in the first place, does it matter if they fit in the little thing as if you've got your big ones? So think about what matters most to you and where you want to put your money first. And as you think of your finances in this new year, consider whether your money choices reflect your values. If you want to reflect in a more fulfilling life and you want to invest in doing more good in your community, you might be surprised at how much all of that hinges on whether your money choices reflect your values.
Thank you. So the offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to these people. Our offering is an affirmation. It's a yes. So as Miranda said today, when we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our mission. Our closing hymn is page 183, The Winds of Change Forever Blown. Again, I invite you to stand as you're willing and able.
The wind of change forever blown across the tumult of our way, tomorrow's unborn griefs depose, the sorrows of our yesterday. Dream yields to dream, strife follows strife, and death unweaves the webs of life. For us the labor and the heat, the broken secret of our pride, the strenuous lessons of defeat, the flower deferred, the fruit denied, but not the peace supremely won, great Buddha of the lotus throne. With futile hands we seek to gain our inaccessible desire, diviner summits to attain, with faith that sings and feet that tire, but not shall conquer or control the heavenward hunger of our soul. The end elusive and afar still lures us with its beckoning flight, and our immortal moments are a session of the infinite. How shall we reach the great unknown nirvana of your lotus throne?
Our closing words are an excerpt found from the Harvard Business Review. It says, money has been essential to civilization since it first arose among our ancestors. Its absence can create great hardship, but its presence doesn't always create a good life. The idea that more money makes a happier life may be accurate up to a point, but quickly the benefits money provide are as numerous as the problems it creates, depending on the person. A hedonic adaptation process means that we quickly adapt to new levels of wealth, and those new levels don't create more happiness. Money is an incredible tool, but it shouldn't be the goal in itself. The concept that money should serve us and we shouldn't serve it is incredibly simple, but also remarkably difficult to remember in a world that so often measures success in large homes, sports cars, and sophisticated technology. To flourish, regulate money to its proper place in your life. Money can't buy happiness, and focusing on it too much can actually be detrimental to your sense of purpose. If you find yourself seeking meaning through money, reflect on ways to deprioritize it in your life, and make sure you're not sacrificing those things which are more important. Things that Miranda brought up: relationships, meaningful work, and service to others. We do want to thank Miranda so joyously for joining us today, giving us ideas to take home with us to ponder, to reflect upon. We will now extinguish our chalice. So please read with me the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of commitment, meaning of fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. It is time for our postlude. Be safe and be well.
I work all night, I work all day to pay the bills I have to pay. Ain't it sad? And still there never seems to be a single penny left for me. That's too bad. In my dreams I have a plan. If I got me a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work at all. I'd fool around and have a ball. Money, money, money must be funny in a rich man's world. Money, 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 always sunny in a rich man's world. Ah, all the things I could do if I had a little money. It's a rich man's world. It's a rich man's world. A man like that is hard to find, but I can't get him off my mind. Ain't it sad? And if he happens to be free, I bet he wouldn't fancy me. That's too bad. I must leave, I have to go to Las Vegas or Monaco and win a fortune in a game. My life would never be the same. Money, money, money must be funny in a rich man's world. Money, 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 always sunny in a rich man's world. Ah, all the things I could do if I had a little money. It's a rich man's world. Money, money, money must be funny in a rich man's world. Money, 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 always sunny in a rich man's world. Ah, all the things I could do if I had a little money in a rich man's world. It's a rich man.